Nobody would ever claim that Billy Joel is cool in the conventional sense, particularly if they're the kind of person who actively worries about what coolness is supposed to mean. Billy Joel is also not cool in that kitschy, campy, he's so uncool he's cool sense, which also happens to be the most tired designation in popular culture. He has no intrinsic coolness, and he has no extrinsic coolness. If cool was a color, it would be black, and Billy Joel would sort of be burnt orange. Yet Billy Joel is great. And he's not great because he's uncool, nor is he great because he doesn't worry about being cool, because I kind of think he does. No, he's great in the same way that your dead grandfather is great. Because unlike 99% of pop artists, there's absolutely no relationship between Joel's greatness and Joel's coolness, or lack thereof. Just as there's no relationship between the greatness of serving in World War II and the coolness of serving in World War II. What he does as an artist wouldn't be better if he was significantly cooler, and it's not worse because he isn't. And that's sort of amazing when one considers that he's supposedly a rock star. For just about everyone else in the idiom of rock, being cool is pretty much the whole job description. It's difficult to think of rock artists who are great without being cool, since that's precisely why we need them to exist. There have been countless bands in rock history, T-Rex, Jane's Addiction, the White Stripes, who I will always classify as great, even though they're really just spine-crushingly cool. What they are is more important than what they do. And this is not a criticism of coolness. By and large, the musical component of rock isn't nearly as important as the iconography and the posturing and the idea of what we're supposed to be experiencing. If given the choice between hearing a great band and seeing a cool band, I'll take the latter every single time. This is why the Eagles suck. But it's the constraints of that very relationship that give Billy Joel his subterranean fabulosity, and it's why he's unassumingly superior to all his mainstream 70s peers who got far more credit. James Taylor, Carole King, Bruce Springsteen, etc. Joel is the only rock star I've ever loved who I never wanted to be, not even when he was sleeping with Christy Brinkley. Every one of Joel's important songs, including the happy ones, are ultimately about loneliness. And it's not clever lonely, like Morrissey, or interesting lonely, like Radiohead. It's lonely, like the way it feels when you're being hugged by someone and it somehow makes you sadder. It's always difficult to understand what people think they're hearing when they listen to the radio. This was especially true in the 1970s, when there seemed to be no difference between what was supposedly good music and what was supposedly bad music. WMMS, the premier radio station in Cleveland during the Carter administration, was famous for playing Springsteen's Born to Run every Friday afternoon at exactly 5 p.m. For years, that was the station's calling card. And this was done without irony. This song was supposed to serve as the anthem in the spirit for working-class Northeast Ohioans. Eventually, that's what Born to Run became. But what nobody seems to notice is that this song has some of the most ridiculous lyrics ever recorded. Half the time, Springsteen writes like someone typing a PG-13 letter for Penthouse Forum. The lines, "Just wrap your legs around these velvet rims and strap your hands across my engines," is as funny as anything Tenacious D ever recorded, except Bruce is trying to be deep. Now, it's not like this song is necessarily terrible, and it's certainly better than everything on Born in the USA, except for Glory Days and maybe I'm Going Down. But it's difficult to understand why Born to Run is considered a higher poetic achievement than Meatloaf's Paradise by the Dashboard Light or Van Halen's Running with the Devil, two equally popular songs from the same period that expressed roughly similar themes while earning no cred whatsoever. So the real question becomes, why did this happen? Part of it is probably based in fact. I suppose Springsteen is more real, or whatever, and took a legitimately emotive risk with his earnest 8th grade poetry. Referring to your guts as my engines may be idiotic, but I have little doubt that Bruce really thinks of his ribcage in those terms. However, Springsteen's sincerity only mattered if you had a predetermined opinion about what he was trying to accomplish. David Lee Roth might have been sincere, but he was just a cool kid trying to get laid. Meatloaf might have been sincere, but he was just a fat goofball who was cool in spite of himself. But Bruce was trying to save you. He appealed to the kind of desperate intellectual who halfway believed that, when not recording or touring, Springsteen actually went back to New Jersey to work at a car wash. Before he even utters his lyrics, people accept his words as insights into their version of existence. Had Bruce written Paradise by the Dashboard Light, people would play it at weddings. Once again, I want to stress that I have no qualms with how this process works. I'm not interested in trying to convince anyone that they should or shouldn't adore whichever denim-clad icon they choose. However, this abstract relationship between the perception of the artist and the appreciation of the product unfairly ghettoized Billy Joel while he was making the best music of his career, and some of the best music of the late 70s and early 80s. Because Billy is not cool like Elvis Costello, and because he's not anti-cool like Randy Newman, Joel was perceived as edgeless light rock. If a musician can't convince people that he's cool, nobody cool is going to care. And in the realm of rock and roll, the cool kids fucking rule. Certainly, it's not as if Billy Joel was the first artist who ever sang about being inexplicably depressed. But he might be the first artist who ever sang about getting yelled at by his dad for being depressed, which is less a commentary on his father and more an illustration of how Joel couldn't deny that he had no valid reason to be unhappy, yet still was. When I eventually learned that Joel tried to kill himself in 1969 by drinking half a bottle of furniture polish, I wasn't the least bit surprised. Joel's best work always sounds like unsuccessful suicide attempts. Joel's music always has an undercurrent railing against the desire for perfection. Another song off The Stranger, Just the Way You Are, proves that sentiment twice, once cleverly and once profoundly. To this day, women are touched by the words of Just the Way You Are, a musical love letter that says everything everybody wants to hear. You're not flawless, but you're still what I want. It was written about Joel's wife and manager Elizabeth Weber, and it outlines how he doesn't want his woman to try some new fashion or dye her hair blonde or work on being witty. He specifically asks that she don't go changing in the hopes of pleasing him. The short-term analysis is that this is a criticism of perfection, but in the best possible way. It's like Billy is saying he loves Weber because she's not perfect, and that he could never leave her in times of trouble. The sad irony, of course, is that Joel divorced Elizabeth 3 years after Just the Way You Are won a Grammy for Song of the Year. Obviously, some would say that cheapens the song and makes it irrelevant. But I think the opposite is true. I think the fact that Joel divorced the woman he wrote this song about makes it his single greatest achievement. When I hear Just the Way You Are, it never makes me think about Joel's broken marriage. It makes me think about all the perfectly scribed love letters and drunken emails I have written over the past 12 years, and about all the various women who received them. I think about how I told them they changed the way I thought about the universe, and that they made every other woman on earth unattractive, and that I would love them unconditionally even if we were never together. I hate that those letters still exist. But I don't hate them because what I said was false. I hate them because what I said was completely true. My convictions could not have been stronger when I wrote those words, and, for whatever reason, they still faded into nothingness. 3 times I have been certain that I could never love anyone else, and I was wrong every time. Those old love letters remind me of my emotional failure and my accidental lies, just as Just the Way You Are undoubtedly reminds Joel of his. Perhaps this is why I can't see Billy Joel as cool. Perhaps it's because all he makes me see is me.